today we got the Clive Cussler 300T. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, it's Mr. A from Got Another Watch Time. So today I had the liberty of borrowing the special limited edition, the Clive Cussler DOXA Sub 300T. I've had the pleasure of wearing this for about 2 weeks or so now. Definitely have a lot of thoughts about this piece, which I wanted to share with you guys. And there you have it. This is indeed the Clive Cussler Sub 300T, a special, limited release from DOXA. For those of you who might not be familiar with Clive Cussler, he is a very famous author that has written multiple books about a fictional character, an adventurer known as Dirk Pitt. I've definitely read a couple of books, growing up. And in celebration of, the author himself, Clive Cussler, this is a limited release edition that came out not too long ago from DOXA in, commemoration of him and his wonderful work. As you can see, this is definitely different from the regular DOXA releases that everyone is familiar with. Of the same design, with the wonderful rice of beads bracelet. But as you can tell, this is made out of an aged steel, which is a concept. The original DOXA that Dirk Pitt wears, in his stories is known to be with that funky orange dial. But yeah, with that being said, let's talk a little about the specs. Again, this is constructed from the aged stainless steel case. Has a wonderful diameter of 42.5 millimeters, which sits very flush on this extra layer of base plate that you can see from, the model right here. Now, in terms of the crown action, this is a screw down crown with the very famous fish logo that is inscribed here. And then with the water resistance, a little different from the regular DOXA, releases, in that this is has a water resistance of 30 ATM or 300 meters. 984 feet for our American friends, and then that is more than ample to have this watch, to be considered as a full flush dive watch. It does have the screw down case back as well that you can see once we have this opened up right here. And then in terms of the movement, it has the automatic movement, self-winding action that gives this a power reserve of 38 hours. And the usual suspects here, with the hours, minutes, seconds, as well as the date indications that are all in this piece. As you can see, as mentioned, this is constructed out of that aged stainless steel case. So with the display, I guess it is definitely a little more tricky when compared to its other models from the releases. And then yeah, sapphire crystal on this unit. The helium escape valve is also available on this model as well. But in terms of the constructions, very similar to the normal DOXA that everyone is very familiar with. The very famous bracelet here, with the same construction with the rice of beads, and then the very awesome, clasp that gives it a very nice, easy clip right there. And then the dive extension, also readily available. A very simple, but a very functioning movement right here. And on my wrist, this watch sits very actually flush. The odd thing about this, even though it's 42.5, because of the design, the construction of the watch itself, it sits very comfortably. And then even though it is definitely considered to be an oversized watch, it does seem very proportionate on my 6.5-inch wrist. Comfortable. One thing to note is that, you could almost see the layers of the watch itself, starting with the crystal, the bezel, and then the gap in between the actual body as well as the bezel. And of course the back plate here, as you lift up the watch, and you'll see it's almost like a little cake. Let's talk a little about the additional side items, that came with this watch, of course. Starting with this wonderful booklet in here, that gives it a little bit of the design, in terms of the Clive Cussler's, the adventurer style, layout. And then of course, starting with the case, a very unique case, the construction of the box that it comes in. Two-piece layers to this actually. The first one is right here, which is the outer shell. It almost looks and feels like an actual book, something that you will get out of a bookstore. And like I mentioned, this has the look and feel of a book, which can be opened up to reveal how this came, in terms of the packaging. The booklet, the manual fits right here, and then the strap, which I'm going to show you guys in a bit, with a little bit of the history. And then as you flip this open, wonderful, the cushion for the watch itself, and then again, the total package came just as like this. Now, of course, with the additional strap that I mentioned, this is the Nato strap that comes in 20 millimeters. As you can tell, you know, it sticks with the continuation with the wonderful aged brushed feel right here in terms of the watch pin, the buckle, and then the keepers right here as well. Also going this way, you know, for the full construction. A very rugged, sturdy piece. I did try this out, you know, and then I'll show you guys, you know, what it looks like with the watch, as well as this Nato strap, you know, in a second. And then going back into the actual watch, you know, the design itself, as you can tell, a very unique look in that, you know, there's hints of orange throughout the bezel, as well as the markings on the dial. And keep in mind, you know, there are 3 numbers, I forgot exactly which digits it is, but that are gonna be marked in the calendar, you know, to commemorate the birth year, as well as the birth date of Clive Cussler himself, also marked in this wonderful orange. So subtle hints of orange throughout the dial that you can see. Again, a wonderful, a very sentimental piece, you know, I can definitely call out for everyone that is a fan of Dirk, Pitt, as well as Clive Cussler, the man himself. In terms of the bezel action, let's take a listen. So something to note, you know, with the DOXA pieces when it comes to bezel action as well as the sound, I like to refer to them as the 2-tone variations, because there's 2 ways that you could actually grip and, you know, rotate the bezel. So with the bezel action, you know, the first instance, you know, when everyone rotates the bezel without actually pushing it down, it has a very light but a little bit of a crisp sound to it. Take a listen. Which is a little more high-pitched. Pressing down the bezel and rotating it, you know, it gives it a little more depth as well as more clickiness to it. And that is just something that I prefer. So take a listen to this, the difference. Definitely noticeable in terms of the sound itself. You know, even though it is listed as 42.5 millimeters in diameter, the full body construction definitely gives this more than, you know, the actual listed measurements. And yeah, just really finely crafted piece of a tool watch. The dial itself is very unique in that the name of Clive Cussler is, you know, inscribed here in orange with the sub 300T mentioned on the top, DOXA automatic on the top left corner. And then the most notable factor about this is this gray beige, almost like, you know, khaki color, you know, dial that has a compass looking, you know, design listed on the back. Something that you're not going to see every day, but definitely a piece unique. And as promised, this is the watch, you know, in the Nato strap that it came with. And as mentioned before, the keeper, the buckle, as well as the pin, they all match the construction and the design of the original body itself, including the bracelet. Aged stainless steel throughout all the pieces. DOXA bracelets are known to be sturdy, durable, and then of course, you know, reliable. But just, I don't know, maybe with the design of the watch itself, this just really fits well, you know, with this Nato strap. Here, let me put this on. And there you have it, on my 6.5-inch wrist, fully decked out with all the pieces, you know, that this limited edition came with. Again, just because of the tone of the dial itself, you know, it just works really well with this specific color. The construction of this Nato strap, very sturdy. It's definitely not one of the silky smooth kind that you're gonna see. This is one of those durable straps, you know, that you know it's gonna be like sturdy. But again, with the color combination, it just works really well. Putting this on the strap definitely gives it that vibe of an adventurer's watch. There's no denying that, you know, this is, you know, designed to give that nostalgic feeling, you know, in terms of Clive Cussler as well as Dirk Pitt's characters. And yeah, this actually even feels even more comfortable on this Nato strap for me. But in terms of the design, I gotta mention, I have to admit, I like it better on this Nato strap that it was paired up with. But yeah, I definitely had fun, you know, wearing this piece for the whole 2 weeks that I've had this. Again, thank you to my friend for letting me enjoy this piece, you know, and then reviewing it. Now, as always, if you've liked, you know, the contents, please do, you know, hit that thumbs up button for me and hit that subscribe button. Again, as always, thank you for joining me today on this wonderful journey, you know, into horology as well as watch ownerships. And I'll be catching you guys very shortly on the next one. Thanks.